Welcome to this month's episode of The Meeple Gallery. You may notice we're on a different set here. Pretty much, this is an old couch from an apartment of mine, and we decided that there was a wall full with clutter, and hey, we can use that for something.
Yeah, we can get cozy and comfy and a little homier atmosphere.
Yeah, so we decided we're going to use this for more discussion stuff, or maybe not exactly news related, or something where we need a table in front of us. There'll be more stuff on the wall. We're just lazy to getting to it.
Yeah, it's good. You'll see it gradually fill in as hopefully more of these fun, casual videos start to drop. But we're here, of course, now to answer your viewer comments or just read them and help you feel good about yourself, like you made a difference. And this month, we're largely focusing on your reactions to Gen Con.
What a shocker.
Yeah, and you had a lot of them, so let's waste no more time. Kicking things off, Hoser40K and a bunch of other people wanted to say what they were excited for, the things they were happy about at Gen Con. Hoser says, Dune is probably my most anticipated release, interested in Unmatched as well, and any sneak peek of Return to Dark Tower you can provide us would be most appreciated. I think Smirk and Dagger has a game called The Menace Among Us that caught my eye. It's a hidden traitor game along the lines of Battlestar Galactica. Curious how each player deck is built without revealing who the traitor is. Maybe you can do some investigating, please. Well, Return to Dark Tower, they only had playable at scheduled events, I believe, but we saw some of the artwork and stuff they had for it. And looks very cool.
Dune was around, but every time I went there was a full table, and that wasn't one I felt like I could wait, because I had a feeling...
Yeah, we kind of made the choice to... Both of us wanted to play Aliens. There was a time where maybe we could have split up, and one of us went off and tried Dune as well. But it's coming out shortly, so... Also, we never played the original, so, unfortunately we can't compare it. But we'll see how the new one turns out. I did look up that other game that you mentioned. What was it called? The Menace Among Us. And I believe you're assigned a deck that's face down, and then you actually mix it in with other different cards and decks to choose your character and thing for your hidden roles. So I don't know, that probably is not very helpful, not full details, but the game looked cool. I thought it looked cool as well. Shane Anigans said, I'm really hoping FFG have some new Terranoth content or a new co-op game set in the Android universe. I think we were both kind of expecting an Android game.
Definitely Android.
Didn't see either of those, however, though, no. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised. I think we both thought, it's because they were teasing some Android stuff a few weeks ago, but probably they're saving it, or just wasn't ready yet, I guess. Falcon Ash K said, Smash Up and Legendary expansions are always good to have. I pre-ordered Silver from Bezier Games, still waiting until September for it to ship, and Pandemic Rapid Response is fantastic. He already had the chance to play that one.
All right.
Those are some good picks. Nighthawk said, consider checking out the new company Monster Fight Club and their new game Tentacle Town, former Gale Force 9 employees. We didn't get to play this one either, but I saw it's got tentacles.
Really?
There are there are physical plastic tentacles that rise up around the game board. That looks cool. Kirk Beiser asked, did you mention Parks from Keymaster? It is one of my most anticipated games of the year. I believe this was actually, if it wasn't one of our Kickstarter picks, then there was another Park game or multiple that are very similar to it. This was like exploring national parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did have a Kickstarter game that was that. I don't remember if it was actually called Parks though.
But so good one to look out for. Dice or Die commented, hey, I roll for crit. I played a God of War demo at Come On Expo. It was amazing, but they didn't have a release date. Can you ask and squeeze a date out of them and share it with us? Didn't find a date for you, but I'm pretty sure it's very soon. For us, it was at Gen Con. It was for sale there. So if anything, I think they're just waiting on printing. So I'm pretty sure they said Q3, maybe Q4 2019. So I would expect to see it.
I'm almost certain it's going to be before the Christmas rush.
Oh, yeah. I would think maybe even September.
I feel like anything that's sold at Gen Con will be released before Christmas.
Yeah, that's a very safe bet.
Because that's just... You don't want to miss that date.
So soon. Seamus Padraig McGowan said, the one I'm looking forward to big time is the game Deranged. I had not heard about this, but I read about it, and it does look very cool. It's a game where one player becomes a monster, and you don't know who it is, and that player is trying to kill everyone else. The twist is that it's like a game of tag, and to win you need to be human. And if you're the monster and you kill another player, then you become human again. So the monster is constantly switching as you try to get each other.
So it's one person. It's hot potato.
Right, exactly. It's a hot potato tag monster game. Sounds fun. It sounds like a really neat concept. One of the big things that was at Gen Con that we also did a video on before the show was the new Teburu digital gaming system. And a lot of people had comments about this. Tons of them. Most of them negative, I would say. Freddie Duran said, this is really cool. This will obviously all work on their own games. Games from other publishers I don't see happening. I see other publishers doing the same if needed. Either way, this definitely has pros and a lot more cons. For one, it'll have an expensive upkeep to it. This is a hard pass for me. It takes away from the analog feel board games offer. The biggest upside is that it forces players to play correctly. So he has a lot of, I'm getting whiplash from reading this comment. There's definitely like good and bad things to it. The Risk Taker said, I don't mind app integration, but the problem I have with apps and board games is the obsolescence of the apps needed for the games. If the app is not updated and you can't use it on your device, then it could make the game useless. I've definitely heard that concern a lot with other app games, and it does seem like for this it would be on an even bigger scale. But
This one's a little bit harder, but I do feel with the other, so let's say like Mansions of Madness, for example, and the app is removed from the store for whatever weird reason, Fantasy Flight disappears from the world. There are, at this point, so many creative people. Like, you hear about all these other games that, like, there was a classic WoW server that secretly is being run. And, like,
Right.
I think there's another huge MMO, like a Heroes MMO, I forget the exact name of it. But it actually had its own server, even though all the official servers are gone.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get that code
if
and
it's got a
remake it.
fan base, yeah, I think you're right. Of course, and like you said, this one is trickier because it's not just an app.
The problem is, yeah, I'm speaking of strictly where there's the only thing you're really missing is the digital thing.
Right.
This has all the other components, which can be a little bit more annoying, so to speak, to collect.
Yeah. Not everybody was down on it, though. Thrill Kill said, as much as I love an analog, boring Euro from time to time, the idea of having more interactivity from our board games excites me. Puts flameproof suit on. Good thing you put that suit on. And Sam Balducci said, I can see this for a DM-less D&D type of game. You can download new scenarios and maps over time. Each character is presented a set of choices to make. While this would sandbox the D&D style with the computer, cloud connectivity, and AI, you can have a multiplayer choose-your-own-adventure type of game. I think that's similar to also kind of what you see with Mansions of Madness or even the new Descent app. Like this could be useful for games like that, or even something like a digital Gloomhaven style game where the app can handle all the storytelling stuff and the monsters and the decisions.
What I would like to see from that, though, if they're going to do this, is if it, one, can connect to Wi-Fi, because then, let's say, hypothetically, we, like, two friends who play, and then I move away. I can get my own copy, and we can still play across the internet, which could be a bit more interesting, because they tell you where you move, so I can move the piece and see that.
That would be awesome.
And then this one I've complained a lot about with Mansions of Madness, but make sure you don't just keep adding new things. Use everything that you made in the past.
Yeah. We like to see, why don't throw it out if it ain't broke. Keep throwing it in. All right, so that's Teburu. DC Rebirth was another one of the big games at the show. We actually reviewed it before the show. Freddie Duran said, I kind of feel like this can feel sluggish, very much like the core game and some of its expansions. I've tried the DC deck builder, but it was so slow I found it boring, so I walked away not liking the Cerberus system at all. I wanted to love the DC deck builder, but my experience was meh. Is this standalone any different, aside from the new stuff introduced?
Unfortunately, it's going to have some
ahead.
slow turns because either A, the villain's not out, or there's nothing for you to buy, which can hypothetically happen. To me, that's not too bad, because usually it's just done. Next turn, it usually comes back around relatively quickly.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of this in the review. I mean, I think for me, I'm a little bit in the same boat, and I got turned around on this one. So I definitely would say if you feel that way, it's still worth giving Rebirth a shot. Other people had similar thoughts. Refresh Damon said, I wasn't really into the original DC deck builder because how the theme worked with the mechanics was really wonky. The game seemed a bit unbalanced and also seemed rather simplistic. But this Rebirth looks like it fixes some of those problems. So after all these years, I might just give this one a shot. Matt H. Louder said, this looks good. Is it faster to set up than Legendary Marvel? It's one of the things I loathe about that game. If this game is better than DC Deck Builder version 1 and is faster to set up than Legendary, tell me. What do you think?
I would say that after your first game, yes, it will be, I think, a little bit faster because you're not really picking groups. You still just have the main deck. You shuffle that into 5 piles. You read the little card, which usually is just add 1 or 2 cards in. When I feel especially for us at Legendary, because not only do we shuffle it, we have to shuffle for a while because we're so afraid of just getting the same thing. You actually put the scheme twist in sort of space to make sure they're not too close.
Yeah, plus there's multiple decks you have to shuffle now, so it's definitely
choosing
faster.
A scenario, mastermind,
all that stuff.
But we're also slow.
That is true. Along the same lines, Blake Curry said, the setup looks a good deal messier than previous games. I wonder if it takes time to get used to how everything looks, or if maybe this game just would really benefit from a proper playmat to show everything in its place.
Hey, speaking of which,
I believe you can comment on that.
I got the playmat for that at Gen Con, and yes, it makes a huge difference. It's probably... At this point, I mean, I'll have to rewatch the video, but that actually is a miss that I almost feel like the playmat
once you've seen it, you're like, how could he go back?
Yeah, exactly. It just is so helpful. You actually didn't have the chance to see it, so I'd love to actually do another one with you just so you can experience that.
Yeah, definitely. So that was that, but of course, there was also a new Marvel show, that was Marvel Champions, the new LCG from Fantasy Flight. Tapcat said, I'm a longtime Marvel fan and definitely appreciate the extent to which FFG has woven the theme into the game's mechanisms. The use of secret identities is an especially nice touch. Unfortunately, I'm not thrilled with the mix of characters in the core set, and I'm not at all sure that I have an appetite for buying the inevitable and infinite expansions or for building decks from that ever-increasing card pool. This will definitely find a significant audience, but I'm not sure I'll be part of it. This is a sentiment and fear that I also share.
I just find that funny because to me, Marvel is infinite. I mean, they just keep releasing another issue.
I mean, that is true, but nowadays, of course, a lot of people are just fans of the movies, and it's a little bit easier to.
You didn't just become a fan of the movies.
That's true, but I also mostly just read one series, which is Spider-Man. And don't get me wrong, I mean that's hard to do too. I mean, I'd also say that comics don't require setup time or deck building. You just read it. Well, this is a time commitment for sure.
There is a bit more, but also. With deck building, especially with these LCGs, sites are going to crop up where you can just look up if you want to play Spider-Man, what's a good list. And I'm sure there's people who are going to be angry about net decking, that you need to do the experience yourself. But look, not everyone wants to spend time to deck. They just want to play the game.
Yeah, well, that's me. But I mean, and part of it, honestly, for me, isn't even just the time. It's just I know that if I get into this, I know how often they put out these packs. This is like, do I want to buy a pack every month for the rest of my life? And maybe I only buy the ones with characters I really like, maybe you pick and choose, and maybe it sounds like with this game, maybe that's more viable than something like, I feel like Netrunner was more competitive, or Arkham, where it seems like the things are more interconnected.
Well, because you buy a full story arc. You're buying the movies.
Right. So
I mean, hypothetically, I could miss some packs, but the idea would be, I mean, there's probably good cards in them too for the players, but it's more like I'm just going to skip out the Carcosa chapter because I just don't want to play, or maybe get it later. That's the other thing. You don't have to get them right away usually.
That is true.
They do got to print for a while, and maybe some packs you might have to be careful if they have a good card in them, because then those are hard to get, but usually you can find out.
So we'll see. I will be the test monkey for this because I'm going in.
Oh, I'm gonna support him. I am an addict, but also enabler. That's the word I'm looking for.
But we'll see. I may drop off. I don't know.
I do want to comment on the characters added.
Actually, before you do that, someone else had a similar comment. Control Lingo said, I still don't understand the hero selection in the base game. For $60, I was expecting Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Spider-Man, maybe Black Widow, but not She-Hulk. Also, why not the Green Goblin as Spider-Man's nemesis? So what do you think about that base selection?
The Green Goblin, first of all, I think they didn't make him his nemesis because Green Goblin is in the tier list, I'd say, of villains in Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery. So we'll start on this one, I guess. Green Goblin's so big, he's big enough to be an issue with other heroes. I'm sure he must have crossed over at least sometime with someone else. Like, they even said he's one of the first packs.
I mean, that's the cynical answer is because he's an expansion. They want you to buy it.
But the reason I'm saying they made him an expansion is, I mean, there is that, but I do think it's because he's worth an expansion.
You wouldn't buy the Rhino expansion, that's for
Right.
sure. But what do you think about that hero selection? I mean,
My guess is it's sort of to give one hero to whoever wants. Like, Black Panther is a lot of people really love because he's the first not white hero to really, I think, made a huge splash in a while. Spider-Man had to be in it because he's Spider-Man. He's everyone's favorite.
of course, She-Hulk is the other not white hero in the set. She's green.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I just think that...
I think and Captain Marvel just had her movie as well. There was someone who am I forget? Oh, Iron Man. He's your classic adventure.
That's a given.
I think She-Hulk was more of just to throw someone who hasn't had a movie yet in.
I personally love it. I understand some people would be like, "Oh, I want the core guys," but I love it because I think She-Hulk is cool and she hasn't been in a lot of stuff. So I like that they're branching out
as well. I think it's nice to get some of those maybe not as represented characters.
That being said, I think still the cynical answer is because they're expansions.
Yeah,
but that's what the game is, you know. If you're not on board for that, then you're not on board for an LCG. So, you know, it is what it is. Colonel Turtle said, looks pretty similar to Sentinels of the Multiverse. Any thoughts on the similarities?
It is similar, but if I recall, Sentinels, you have entirely your own deck. In this, you sort of have a part of a deck, like the Spider-Man deck. Then you build up something else. So you can make a Spider-Man. Technically, he was more of I forget what his thing was. I think it was removing scheme things.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I forget. It was like thwack, attack. You know, they have. But you could be like, no, I'm going to make a more aggressive version or something. So I think there's a bit more custom. I mean, because it's an LCG, you're building more.
You are actually building the deck.
And for some people, they might be a little bit more annoying. They just want to pull out, which, you know, Sentinels works well for. But if you're a Marvel fan, like I said, I'm sure within a week or two of the release, there'll be Marvel Champions database. So you can just look up your decks there.
Gameplay-wise, I do think it feels relatively different. It's not... I definitely can see the comparison. You know, you go around in turns, you're attacking one major villain, but like the actions you're taking and sort of the phases, and also you can... I don't know, it felt different enough to complement it, but... Definitely, I mean, it's hard to avoid the comparison. They're both superhero games.
They are, but like I said, I think the customization is the big thing.
So you'll see what you think when it finally comes out. Let's go on to Arkham Final Hour, which at this point you'll have already seen our review for the game. Ryan McLeod said, how well would this play solo? Either with just one investigator or controlling multiple. Have they even confirmed player counts yet? Darko Krekulj said, so it's Arkham Gloomhaven. I just thought it was an interesting comparison. It hadn't occurred to me that the way that the cards work in that game, where you're putting out numbers and that determines turn order and you can't discuss what you're doing, is pretty reminiscent of the way your actions work in Gloomhaven.
That's true, but...
I mean, obviously it's not 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But I just haven't. Yeah, it's kind of like they took that and said, let's make a lighter.
Except it's a lot scarier to be going second if you didn't want to go second.
Sometimes.
Or not second, but in the second half.
Yeah, depends. It could depend on your cards. Yeah, for sure. In Gloomhaven and this, I think. Aliens, another glorious day in the core. That's a new one we played from Gale Force 9. A lot of people, including Nims, compared this to Space Hulk. Said down to the blips. Hadn't played Space Hulk. That was before our time. But apparently this one is a lot like it. So if you like Space Hulk, maybe you'll like this. Rob Salters said, I was looking forward to this, but it still seems far from being ready for retail. Derek Garcia said, Aliens is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I love tactical co-ops.
Good choice.
But this doesn't sound great. I like some aspects of it. The blips with random spawn numbers is great, but that's about it. The rest sounds pretty run-of-the-mill or downright bad. Specifically thinking of that deck with the random threats, one of which can end the game. Maybe it will come out solid, but I'm not keeping my hopes up. And I want
to answer sort of both of those, the first one, it's absolutely was still in very prototype steps. I can easily see a lot of those cards, like the one we mentioned, being not errata because it
Just
nobody
changed before
edited,
release.
yeah, to see that kind of stuff, or at least alternate modes to say like only throw this in if you want a more difficult game.
We also, for all we know, like we said, we didn't get the full rule set, so maybe there's a rule that makes it not as bad, and they just weren't playing with it or something.
And the blip thing was really cool because I think Radar's thing, that's one of the big, I think Signature Alien things is that seeing the blip map just changing all those blips. But then, like I said, after that, you reveal it doesn't feel like Alien.
Well, to maybe encourage people a little bit more, Evan Miller said, I played a paid event of this at Origins, so we played the whole scenario. The cost in the equipment cards, which we didn't understand, they didn't tell us what they were, he knows,
Oh, finally.
were the number of cards you needed to exhaust to equip it.
Yeah, I had a feeling of something like that.
Yes, the bad event cards are not fun and sometimes scary. It was difficult, but we managed to get out with all of us alive, despite myself and Vasquez making a last stand to get everyone out before being overwhelmed. But a last-second play by someone got us all out. The guy running it said we were the first group to get out with everyone. So, yeah, I don't know. Still, like I said in the video, in our impressions video, still have hopes. I still am pretty confident that they're going to release this game in good form because all their other games have been.
Yeah, I mean, even the wrestling game with Needs were interested in, we were both like, this is actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
So I'm disappointed by first look, but I'm not ready to write it off just yet.
And some more general Gen Con things to close us out of Gen Conville, which is the place we live. K. Parker, or Q. Parker perhaps, said, since Fantasy Flight is going in a different direction, I would like, we were talking about how a bunch of people were leaving Fantasy Flight in the last year or so, said I would like to see them do something different with Elder Sign, kind of like the standalone version of Final Hour. Isn't that just like any Arkham game is something different with Elder Sign? Or
It uses dice.
Like I guess it sounds to me like they meant like the theme, but I guess if they used the dice rolling aspect and maybe did a different take on it, maybe is what they want.
Maybe. I've only played the base. So if you're going to yell at me because I don't have an expansion, understand. I did not have a lot of fun with Elder Sign. So I just feel like there's so much other than the Arkham Files line.
Well, maybe that's why they want a standalone. Maybe they want to see them take it.
Reboot it and fix it so you don't need an expansion to fix it.
Make it something that's actually fun to play. I don't know. Aurora said, I completely missed the Evil Dead 2 booth. Some more information on that would be great. Here's your more information. It's on Kickstarter right now. You can go look at it. I looked all over and asked multiple representatives of Restoration Games where I could see examples of the Dark Tower and was given blank stares every time. Did you all get a chance to see it? We talked about that too. We saw like the artwork and stuff, but unfortunately not much more than that. There were lots of winners of the show, but my big loser was Blizzard. Hearthstone just released a new expansion pack this week for the collectible card game, and I think it was a huge miss for the fans. They seem more interested in providing fun events for their streamers. So at a physical tabletop event, digital publisher Blizzard managed to be the loser for you. That's too bad. I fell out of Hearthstone. I haven't kept up with expansions and stuff. But.
I played one game.
But I think it's fun. I think it's another one of those, the same reason I don't play physical CCGs, because I just can't be bothered to keep up with the releases and new cards. Cam B26 said, with Corey Konitschka leaving Fantasy Flight, does that mean we will never get an expansion for Outer Rim? I really wanted to play that, but held off because people were saying it was incomplete. Well, I can say that based on the designer of Arkham Horror 3rd Edition left, and they just still put out they're putting out a new expansion with a different designer, so I think if a Star Wars board game sells, they're going to come out with an expansion.
They're not going to skip out on money.
Yeah, I don't think so. Falcon Ash K added that Lucas Litzinger also left FFG to go work at Wizards of the Coast, one of the main designers of the first set of Star Wars Destiny and Android Netrunner. So, yeah, again, change ups.
He's sticking with Netrunner.
Yeah, he goes where Netrunner goes. The Ernie Fours asked, Jasko was there? Did they have Angry Joe's Street Fighter game? It should be shipping out soon, and I know he's working on Mortal Kombat. I did not see it at their booth.
No, I didn't see it. Their big thing they were pushing was their new My Hero Academia card game.
Yeah, they did have a new Dragon Ball Z standalone board game that they had the box for. I just asked them about it, and it sounded pretty cool. So if you look like Dragon Ball Z. And Dan Michalowski said that he played the demo of Oathsworn Into the Deepwood from Shadowborn Games, and said it was great, definitely the best demo I experienced. So
We're glad you enjoyed the giant rat.
Yeah, who doesn't? All right. Now, also another game that was announced at right after Gen Con, a big one was Tapestry, the new Stonemaier game. Luke L. said, I'm in for Tapestry. I'm curious to see how much demand there will be for it. Stonemaier believes the price will be high enough that you'll easily get in on a pre-order over the first few days after it's available. I am not so sure about that, but they haven't announced the price yet, so that definitely will be a factor. What do you think about that?
We're going to pre-order it because we know people are just interested in it and probably would give us lots of clicks. I'm not going to lie there.
But do you think that they'll maybe have readjusted after what happened with Wingspan, that they're going to produce more copies? Do you think that a significantly high price will scare people off, or
a high price will scare people off depending on how high that price is? It does have painted minis in the game.
I'd say if it's like anything like if it's $80 or less, if $80 is high, I don't think that's scaring anybody off. 90
people
or $100.
were willing to pay, I think, between 70 and 80 for Wingspan. So
yeah.
I assume it's going to be higher than that. We'll see.
We also, in that video, talked about the new games from Pandasaurus. The Arcuball said, I sure hope Silver and Gold lives up to the theme. I tried Welcome To on the praise of so many folks in the industry, but it was a huge disappointment. Simply one big accounting exercise with no thematic immersion whatsoever. Luckily, I like Treasure and Pirates and whatnot better. That's too bad. I could definitely see feeling that way about Welcome To, but I kind of like I feel like the theme, if you get into it, is kind of there. You are little houses. I mean, the theme is kind of mathematical, even in real life.
Well, I guess for me, it's a puzzle and something like, how do I make this? Oh, I'm going to put this here, and that one's going to get a pond, or not pond, wow, a pool. Oh man, I'm going to get so much money from this. I'm flipping these houses.
Yeah, that sounds thematic to me. All right.
That's the roll and write we need. Like, not a whole neighborhood, but you have one house, you have to like flip it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty. There's that new one where you do blueprints you design of a house. Might have been called Blueprints, I forget. So now some non-Gen Con stuff at the end here. Ross Konopaski had some thoughts about the Detective LA Crimes expansion. That's for Detective A Modern Crime board game, and that we reviewed recently. He said, I really like this expansion. I've finished the first 2 scenarios and feel it's a much tighter storyline. I do like the surveillance rule and also being able to spend tokens to do stuff that may be a little outside of the law. Reading through these stories was much easier. Maybe Portal hired an English speaker to edit this? For the most part, the cases were compelling without being too convoluted. Case 5 of the original was nuts. Hoping Case 3 doesn't ruin that. We'll see. Playing it this week. And he had a lot more thoughts about it.
Oh, man. I can't wait to hear his thoughts on Case 3.
Case 3, man. It's crazy stuff. I feel like a little bit more mixed on this one, but I'm glad that people are finding fun with it, and I still hope to play more expansions.
Like I said, we were excited with the prospect of like just one-shots in a box, or even like different writers.
Yeah. A lot of potential there. And Kevy B asked, which do you prefer, the 2 detective games or the 2 Chronicles of Crime games? Do you have a preference? And now there are 3 Chronicles of Crime games. We haven't gotten to Redview yet. But I think same, it's as our top 10 from last year. I rated the base of Chronicles just a little higher than the base of Detective, and I think that's still how I feel now. I think they're both great games I really enjoy, but the way you play Chronicles and the more almost lighthearted nature of it, I think I like a little bit more than Detective, but I don't think you can go wrong with either, really, if you like mystery stories.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like Chronicles is usually more standalone-y, so if you just like the solve a case and done with.
That's certainly true.
Detective has a bit more connective, so you feel a bit more rewarding for finding things or trying to make connections between all the cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because usually I'm more of a standalone guy. I like my TV shows just Monster of the Week, one and done. But I still had a lot of fun with thinking about oh, this is an interesting loose end and stuff for detective.
Yeah, that's something to be said. Definitely, if you want a campaign and a more involved story, you'll certainly get that from Detective. Seventh Continent announced that they're doing this retail release of like a smaller version of the original game. I think they're calling it the Classic Edition or something. And there's some interesting comments about that I hadn't considered. Cam B26, back again, said, okay, maybe I'm dumb here, but I have some thoughts about Serious Pulp, the publisher. If they kept saying that the Seventh Continent was too expensive and that they weren't doing it anymore, then why are they doing a sequel? Also, why are Serious Pulp saying a card game is more expensive to produce than, say, a miniatures game like Cthulhu Death May Die, which has many more components? It just doesn't make sense that a company that makes millions of dollars off of Kickstarter cries that A, the game is too expensive, B, they want to focus on other games only to keep making the same type of game. In my opinion, companies like Serious Pulp give Kickstarter a bad name, and says he's not going to back the game because of that, wants to know what we think about it. What do you think about it?
What they're saying with the expense, I don't know that I'm interesting. Got nothing on that. But the expensive, they mean it's too expensive than to keep making a bunch of copies that will sit on shelves after everyone's already bought it.
Yeah, I think
they're referring less of to literally making the game, but more of just having the overproducing.
Yeah, I think it's expensive for how many people they estimate will want it, and so to turn that profit is harder. I do agree that thinking about it, it's like, well, yeah, it's a lot of cards. Don't get me wrong, but it's mostly just cards. I do think maybe they just like Kickstarter because that's better for most publishers, or maybe they're just not willing to take that risk because I feel like there's a market, if you marketed it right, that people would want to play this and you could publish it widely, but sometimes you're a small publisher and you can't make that.
Right. I think the big challenge is, because I remember even when we used to have the store are there people outside who already backed it who want this game?
Yeah. So, which I know there are for some.
I mean, I'm sure there are, but when I say, are there a significant number? Yes.
Is it enough? Aaron Smith wants to know where you got your Archaeopteryx shirt.
That was Kickstarter.
Really?
Yeah.
There was a Kickstarter literally just for that shirt?
And I think a statue too. And I just remember oh, that's a cool shirt.
Do you remember the name of the company? We can put it in the show notes.
This is when I first started Kickstarter, so no, this is a long time ago.
So may not be available anymore, but sorry about that. And of course we got to finish with a couple of Kevy B comments.
Oh, we're in the Kevy B section now?
Yeah, we got
even though we technically already...
He sneaks his way in there from time to time. First, he went through a whole thing about how we were pronouncing scythe as scythe instead of scythe. Listen, we already had a whole comment section where we talked about this. Learn the lore. Go back and check it out. I will, to the day I die, say scythe. Let us know if you're on the side of scythe or scythe. I say scythe people are sociopaths.
I say Scythia.
He also had some interesting thoughts about Pandemic Legacy and some general thoughts about legacy games that we actually talked about in our recent Patreon podcast. I think if you're interested in this comment, you might want to check out. He said, I've played both the Pandemic Legacies, and I can't say I'm in love with the whole idea, at least when it comes to the two Pandemic versions. Season 1 is mostly what you alluded to, with the game just taking on different aspects of all the different modules of play introduced in the base game and all the expansions. This is when we were talking about the Machikoro Legacy at Gen Con. Season 2, he said, was better in that it brought new mechanics into play, and the discoveries were more exciting. But in their desire to add so much more content, it's impossible to actually discover everything you need to discover. So you end up having a lot of these discoveries just handed to you because you need them to move forward in the game. But the worst part of these legacy games is what you said, getting the same people together to complete the story. There were only 2 of us playing Pandemics, and each still took us about 10 months to finish. When you're only playing once a month or so, it's super easy to forget new rules or clues that were introduced in the previous game, which increases the chance that you'll lose. I think I'm done with Legacy. So, yeah, and like I said, we talk about this a lot, but we hadn't really talked about that aspect of it where in between sessions, especially with a game like Pandemic, you might do worse because that game is a game that I think rewards remembering the right strategies. And if it's been a few months, you might not be in it, whereas...
like we said, we talked a lot about it with the podcast. I just want to add one extra note here that we talked a bit more, because this is something relatively new, I think we discovered with the legacy games, is especially the Pandemic one. this is a game that's based off an already existing property, not a whole new one. And we feel like we hit a point that with a significant story beat. I won't say where, so I'm not really spoiling anything. But it wasn't early on. And it felt like this should have been chapter 1 or 2, I feel. Like, maybe 1 if you never played Pandemic before, not there. But, like, it just felt like, really, this long to really feel like we're hitting something really to sink our teeth in?
You know, maybe part of it, too, is that, as we kind of talked about, that Pandemic Legacy was, for a lot of people, most likely their first Legacy game. So maybe they were they didn't want to overwhelm people. They were worried about that. So, and they thought people might buy it because it said Pandemic, and that's, you know, you see Pandemic at Target. So, like, they think it'll be fun and easy. So, maybe that's part of it. But yeah, there's certainly pros and cons to Legacy games. And it definitely seems like the trend, while not dead, isn't as, like, it seemed like a year or two ago that we were just going to see nothing but Legacy games, and it seems like they've
I think
back.
they all just switched to campaign.
Yeah,
They're just like, why should we make it so people destroy things?
Right. So those are all of our comments this week. Thank you so much for talking to us about Gen Con and all that. Before we go, there's just a couple little things that we wanted to address for the future, kind of talking about our channel in general.
First, we're revealing as Cylons.
Yeah, and actually, I'm a reptilian.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know you were a Cylon. That's a double betrayal for me. And after that, we want to talk about our channel in terms of what's that thing? Money.
Yes.
But sometimes we like. If you don't know, we launched our Patreon recently, and we want to just say also, up until just this last couple months, but you're going to start seeing it more and more. Our Kickstarter previews, we always did just free previews. We are starting to do now paid previews, and I know this is a hot button issue in the board game industry. Rodney Smith had a really good video about it a few months ago, and there's a lot of discussion about it. But just want people to be aware that you're probably going to be seeing more of that, where we'll say the little paid promotion banner.
Let us be clear. This will only be for Kickstarters, and I think some how-to-plays, mostly because that's not even an opinion. That's you just reading the instruction booklet for everyone.
Correct, yeah.
When it comes to the final release of the game, that is, we don't want to accept being paid for that because we think that's just a bit over the line. The Kickstarter is more of just us showing it off and not giving final results, because so many times have I backed something where they changed something, or because of the stretch goal would have changed something which could have been a miss because of quality or something.
Absolutely. So we'll still try to, they're mostly informative to show you how the game plays, which is kind of what we always did anyway. We never really gave final thoughts on them. So hopefully that doesn't impact you too much, but you can keep us honest. Let us know what you think in the comments. And the other thing hasn't fully rolled out yet, but if you've been to our website, you may have seen some banner ads for Geek On, which is a tabletop accessory company. They do these awesome board game bags, and also like board game box holders and some other cool accessories. And we are officially affiliated with them at this point. You may start seeing links and stuff pop up for that. But that is, we're, like I said, we will get a cut, and you will get a discount if you use our links to buy their products. But it's not one that we do just willy-nilly. We do think that they are a strong company, that their products are solid. But hopefully neither of these things are things that are going to affect you too much. You hopefully won't even notice them. They won't. We're not going to be constant. We're not going to be just wearing gear and NASCAR logos or whatever.
This is the last time. This whole couch is going to get reupholstered.
Yeah, it's going to nothing like that so far. But we wanted to get out in front and just let you guys know so that you're in the loop with us.
And by out in front, we mean at the end of this video.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody stopped watching. Otherwise, we're in trouble. Thank you again for checking us out, and leave comments all throughout the next month, of course, so we can hear from you more. If you like listening to us talk, of course, you can join us on Patreon, where we have podcasts, and our Discord channel. It would be fun to chat with you in there.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we went a lot more into, I think, our Pandemic Legacy playthroughs, because we played a whole bunch of games over the last weekend.
Yeah.
But, of course, let us know there. And once again, thank you if you already support us there. If not, comments down below, Facebook, Instagram. But until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been the Meeple Gallery.
Hey, go ahead, like and subscribe, and support our Patreon for even more board game content.
Support us now to hear the audio expansion, where you can hear all the other nerdy things we've been up to.